Hey, welcome to you on this Wednesday, February 3rd. My name is Logan Lockhart, and this is Lock It Up Sports Talk here on the Fines Huddle Network. And as you can see, I'm joined by two gentlemen that have joined me before, and then a newcomer making his debut on Lock It Up Sports Talk. It is Kellen Forrest, and he's going to talk about his new show on the mic, which we'll get to in just a minute. And then the other guys, the guys from Bets and Bites. Do you know them? You love them. It's Jordan McDonald. It's Jake Bull and Moss. They've been here before. And here's why I wanted to have you guys on, okay? And before I ask you how you are, you say, I'm being rude. I'm not even asking how you guys are. But here's the thing. I wanted to have you guys on because I want to hear the thoughts on the trade market in the offseason. I know the Super Bowl's coming up. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. But there's a lot of different things happening with these quarterbacks, and I want to get it in before things just get wild. First of all, gentlemen, how are you?
I'm doing well. I guess I can speak for all of us. We're doing well for, how life is. Still locked down, but, football's on, so we can't really complain, right?
Yeah, but there's only one game left. I mean, what are you going to do after?
Well, but we have all that cool off-season drama. I mean, that's just as fun. I mean, I find that fun. I don't know about you guys.
I find it really fun. Jake, you find it fun?
Yeah, honestly, I think this could be one of the craziest off seasons we've seen in a while. I think last year was good, but this, I think, could be better.
Let me tell you, I find it fun when your team gets a new franchise quarterback because that sure makes the offseason exciting.
Okay, now, of course, we're referring to Matthew Stafford, who is now the new quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams. And Kellen, my jaw dropped when I saw that deal get announced, Jared Goff going the other way, and the Rams won't pick in the first round until 2024, barring any trades, of course. But as it stands, no first-round picks until 2024. You like the trade? Who's the winner here? You like it?
I mean, to me, I think both teams are a winner. That was my initial. I mean, I was excited when I saw the news come down. It was pretty clear to me that the Jared Goff, Sean McVay relationship had really broken down. It came pretty clear to me when they decided to start John Wolford in the playoffs against Seattle, even though Jared Goff was technically healthy to start. So I think that was the beginning of the end for this relationship. Obviously, Goff had to come in. He actually won the game. But it just became clear over this year, Sean McVay just didn't trust Jared Goff to do anything crazy. He had the crazy stat for you guys. He had the 40th depth of target in passers with 100 or more passing steps of 6.9 yards. So it was just clear Sean McVay just didn't trust him to not turn over the ball and throw the ball downfield. He had 38 turnovers in his last 31 regular season games, and it just became clear that there needed to be a change. So I think Detroit got quite the haul for Matthew Stafford, but I think Sean McVay is going to be able to do some things he wasn't able to do with Jared Goff with Matthew Stafford under center. So I think it's a win-win. I'm interested to see if that's me because I'm biased. Do you guys think the Rams gave up too much?
Listen, I think I love Matthew Stafford. I think the Lions came out as bandits here. Now, you knew Stafford's time in Detroit was over, right? Look what they got for him. And now I'm thinking about Deshaun Watson. What's this going to do for the trade market and Deshaun Watson? Gentlemen, Bets and Bites, what do you think?
I mean, Deshaun Watson's almost untradeable based on what they got for Matthew Stafford. I mean, you look at the guy, he's just signed a contract. I think he's got the contract starting up this year, so it's a 4-year deal. It's a big ticket, but he's worth the money. I mean, I think he's worth every penny. You see a ton of his receivers go down this year, and he still looked good down the stretch. I mean, the defense couldn't stop any other team from scoring, but, he can put up the points. He can make the plays. So I don't know how many first-round picks is he worth. I definitely think he's a better piece than Matthew Stafford, and he's younger, right?
Yeah, and to Jake's point, he led the league in passing yards and touchdowns, and a lot of that might have been because he was playing with a bad defense. He had to play catch-up, but he was doing it without DeAndre Hopkins. We all know what happened with that. They brought in Brandon Cooks. He started to, play well towards it. At least when Bill O'Brien left, he, for some reason, just had a resurgence. And then we saw Will Fuller. He was having a good season, and he got the PED suspension. So he was throwing to a bunch of guys that aren't considered great receivers. Randall Cobb was hurt, and go on and on. So yeah, and you know what? He's in his prime, and he's considered a top 5 quarterback. So he should deserve, or the Houston Texans should at least ask for as much as they can, because this is a franchise that gave up their first 2 or their first rounders this year and last year, and that kind of bit him in the butt, because that's a 3rd overall pick now. Miami has it, and now it's rumored that he might go to Miami. They might get that pick back, which I find is a little embarrassing, but that's just how it is.
You know what? The thing about Deshaun Watson is that the Texans have to be very careful here. You don't have to trade him and get a quarterback in return necessarily, right? You can be flexible with what you get back. I've heard rumblings about, send it to San Francisco. Garoppolo can come back. The 49ers will add some picks and then call it a day. It doesn't have to be like that, right? You don't have to get a quarterback back. You can go through other avenues. There's going to be quarterbacks available, right? We're seeing already some movement going on. But back to Matthew Stafford, I think that he's the most underappreciated player of this generation, or one of them, right? I mean, and I think, Kellen, you have every reason to be excited about Matthew Stafford. He makes a lot of money. That was a big, big price he had to pay to get him. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to fit well with McVay. What do you think about him and McVay moving forward?
I mean, again, kind of what I touched on. Like, I think part of the reason they had to give up so much, obviously, because of Jared Goff's terrible contract. So I think maybe the one first round and a third was like for just Stafford, and then maybe another first to take on that brutal contract. But I think, again, it's worth it, because I think you saw what Sean McVay could do with Jared Goff in Jared Goff's second year. No one could stop that offense. But then when teams started to figure out Sean McVay's offense, apparently in the organization, it became clear that Sean McVay was trying to counter what all the teams were doing to him. And Jared Goff was falling a little bit behind, and he was not making the appropriate reads. He was turning the ball over. So I think you're right. Matthew Stafford's just been underappreciated. He hasn't been on a great team ever. Those Lions defenses, he's never really had. He had the one defense with Ndamukong Suh, I guess, but he's never really had a top-notch defense. And right now, this Rams defense has Aaron Donald. They have Jalen Ramsey under contract. So I'm very excited to see what Matthew Stafford can do with a great offensive mind and a great defense. But I'll say one thing here. Sean McVay, he's under the gun now because he has no excuse of Jared Goff. A lot of times they could say, "Oh, it's Jared's the problem." Well, now you have Matthew Stafford, and if the Rams don't make a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, I think this was a bad trade for them. They're under the pressure now.
Oh, the pressure on McVay. It just raises. I mean, when you make a big deal like that, it's like, you know what? It's like Masai Ujiri bringing in Kawhi Leonard. It's like, okay, we got rid of the guy that quote unquote couldn't win in the playoffs, and I brought in a guy who's a proven winner. The pressure on you, the accountability goes up right away. How do we feel about Goff in Detroit? Do we like Goff as a quarterback? I think that, he's not far removed from being a guy in this league that you would say, I would build a team around him. How do we feel about Goff with that new Lions look, especially on the coaching staff?
I'll let the other boys jump in first because I'm interested to hear what they have, what their view of Goff is.
I'll start. Goff to me, I've always bashed Goff, but I just think he wasn't worth his contract. I think they kind of rushed to get that done. Just he's the first overall pick, and they didn't want to have to battle him with the franchise tag. So I understand why they signed him, but I think they reached their wits' end, and Kellen said it perfectly. They just I think he reached his peak, and I think that all that success they had when McVay came in, started to dwindle, and I think they need to go in a different direction. But now he's with Detroit. It's a new start. I think he'll be serviceable, but Detroit's not a good team. Like, they're in full rebuild mode. You can see they got 2 first-round picks. They got the most draft capital they could from whatever team for Matt Stafford. That was the way they wanted to go. But you know what? They have somebody at that position that can play. So they're not completely, in shambles for that position. They might even get a quarterback. I think they draft 7th this year. So they have a chance to grab one of those guys that may go in the top 10 and groom him under Jared Goff. So I think he'll be okay, but Kenny Galladay's not going to be back, and Marvin Jones probably won't be back. So who's he throwing to? I know he's got DeAndre Swift, but he's running back. So that's my concern. I know that TJ Hawkins is there, but he needs more weapons if he's going to succeed. So it really depends on what the front office does for him.
JVM.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good interim quarterback there. I don't know if necessarily he's going to be the guy for the future for this team. And like Jordan said, there's a lot of spots to fill on that roster, not just on the offensive side, but on the defensive side too. I mean, they weren't great last season. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know they gave up a lot of points, and that's why Stafford was always chasing games, coming from behind. And I don't know. I just think Goff will be fine for now. Like Jordan said, they could choose to draft a guy at 7, but I think they might want to wait another year or two, see if they can get a higher pick, maybe one of those the next set of guys coming in, right? I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what they decide to do.
Getting draft capital, that's never a bad thing, and the flexibility moving forward for the Lions definitely improved. And you move on from Patricia, so there should be some optimism for the Lions moving forward. Now, let's talk to Deshaun Watson. Let's just get to the issue here. Trade destinations. We heard the Jets being involved here. We've heard the Bears potentially being involved here. The Bears haven't had a quarterback in, well, let me see. Well, I think even before the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup, I don't think the Bears have had a quarterback. And then you look at a team like the San Francisco 49ers. Who are we liking? Trade destinations. Deshaun Watson. Let's not get picky about it. Let's throw some teams out of here. Let's think about it for a second. What do we think, Jordan?
Well, one team that I kind of have my eye on, and I know that the Jets and the Dolphins are the leading favorites just because, they have that 2 and 3rd overall pick, so that's enticing. And they have more draft capital. Both those teams have first-round picks in this first round coming up in April. But a team that I'm keeping my eye on is the Washington football team, because reportedly the Houston Texans are looking for picks and defensive starters. And, look no further than the football team. Look at that defensive line. They have 4 first-rounders on that defensive line: Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. They can't pay all those guys. That's what happened with San Francisco 49ers. They had a great defensive line. They had to move Buckner. They couldn't pay him and Armstead. Allen's coming up on a contract soon, and so will the other guys. And Chase Young is untouchable. We're not going to say that he's going to go to Houston, but, if they're looking for defensive starters, I'd start there. And, Washington doesn't really know what they're going to do with quarterback. Alex Smith, kind of up in the air. They got rid of Dwayne Haskins. I don't think Taylor Heineke's the guy. And then Kyle Allen was just kind of a stopgap. He was a Rivera guy. So I think that just fits perfectly if that's what Houston wants to do, if they want viable starters in return for Deshaun Watson.
That's a lot of Taylor Heineke slander there. I don't know how I feel about that. But I have a question for you guys, because this would be my worst nightmare. But Deshaun Watson to the 49ers, like the 49ers, if they get a solid quarterback, like look out, it's over for the league. And if they can stay healthy, because obviously they were so injured this year. But as Jordan mentioned, Houston's looking for defensive starters. If you're the 49ers, are you putting Nick Bosa on the table? Is he tradable for Deshaun Watson?
Isn't he in the same category as Chase Young in a way? I would think that if you're the 49ers, you've built an identity going back to that Super Bowl run. And Nick Bosa, he is that identity. He's the leader of that identity. I would be very careful to trade him. I don't think they're in desperation mode to get Deshaun Watson. I think that would be a luxury for the 49ers, right? And you say it'd be your worst nightmare. Absolutely it would. And I think the 49ers know it in that division. I would have them right at the top. Shanahan, Garoppolo, that doesn't seem to be meshing, just like what you talked about with McVay and Goff last year. There's something up there. I don't see it. 49ers are interesting. Jordan, you say Washington. Jake, who do you have?
Well, you want to talk about worst nightmares. I mean, the 2 biggest destinations right now, they're talking Miami and New York, both in the AFC East, and they already got Josh Allen on the Bills. So my team not looking great at the quarterback position. You want to go a little further down the list, you look at Atlanta. Like, are they sticking with Matt Ryan? They have the 4th pick in this year's draft. So do they want to maybe take a shot at him? Carolina, 8th pick in the draft. They got Bridgewater, but we really saw this year he wasn't the guy. So it's going to really depend on how many of these teams think they are a win-now team and how many of these teams are in a full rebuild, because I think Deshaun Watson is going to want to go to a win-now team. Are the Jets really a win-now team? I don't know. I mean, they won 2 games this season. Is Miami more of a win-now team? I could argue yes. You put Deshaun Watson in there and it was good. And so I think that's probably a better spot for him, for the Dolphins, but I hate the thought of him going anywhere close to the AFC East.
Don't you think if he went to the Bears, they would immediately be a favorite to not only win the NFC North, but to really be a serious playoff team here, right? I mean, they're just missing that piece.
Well, my concern is kind of the same with Detroit. The Allen Robinson's leaving, but you know what? Al Robinson, I don't know if he's publicly said it, but there's rumors that he wants to play Deshaun Watson. So that's why if Deshaun goes to the Jets, that's a reasonable destination for Al Robinson. So maybe he stays with the Bears if Deshaun Watson goes there. But I just want to say, when it was, I think it was 2017 they were drafted, they had a chance to draft Deshaun Watson. And you know what? I give him a pass to Mahomes because Mahomes was, you know, an anomaly. You know, he had the talent, but he just needed the right situation, which is what he got in Kansas City. But Deshaun Watson, we all knew he needed Clemson. I had him going to the Bears. Actually, I think I had him go to the 49ers second, and then that's when they traded up from third to second to grab Trubisky. So wouldn't that just be hilarious if they just ended up with Deshaun Watson? In the end, if they had to give him a ton, well, they're going to have to give him a ton to get him. But I don't know if Chicago needs a quarterback, but I don't have them on my radar for Deshaun Watson. But you know what? You never know in the NFL.
That's such a brutal draft to look at if you're a Bears fan. And I think everything would be right with the world in Chicago if they got Deshaun Watson finally, right?
Oh, yeah. A lot of Bears fans would be very happy about that.
Kellen, what do you think of the Bears?
I mean, again, kind of what you said. I think any team that gets Deshaun Watson, like Houston they weren't a great team, but any team that gets Deshaun Watson, he's a franchise quarterback. He makes you an instant contender. If they could at least keep some of those defensive pieces, like I've heard the rumors that if the Bears were going to do the deal, they'd want the Texans would want Roquan Smith in return. Again, I don't know if you're a Bears fan, what you're feeling. You'd have to give up a bunch of picks and Roquan Smith. But then again, you're getting one of the franchise quarterbacks in the league. I've seen a lot of people saying they just want their teams to jump on it. Whether it's Washington or the Bears, give it all up, get Deshaun Watson, have a new hope for your franchise. That's a lot what it's about, right? Getting a new guy, getting him in there, getting some excitement in the franchise. So, I mean, if I'm a Bears fan, I know Roquan's a lot to give up, but I say pull the trigger on that, get some excitement in that franchise, and you like you guys talked about, it would be pretty classic that they had a chance to draft him for nothing, and then they have to give up 3 first-rounders and Roquan for him. But, I mean, that's what you get for making bad draft decisions, I guess.
There you go. Love it. And if I'm the Bears, I'm paying the price. That goes for any team. You do anything you can to get Deshaun Watson. But let's go to the Super Bowl now. Now, Jake, I see the line. Last time I checked, Kansas City favored by 3. Do we agree with that? Do we think that's a fair assessment of the Super Bowl and how it's going to play out?
Yeah, so last time I saw it was sitting around 3.5. I haven't looked in about a day and a half. So earlier in the season when Tampa Bay played Kansas City, they were also favored at 3.5, and the total is set right around the same number right now. I believe it's 56.5. So yeah, I think it's the right number only because of how well, I guess, that more the Tampa Bay defense than anything has played down the stretch. Tom Brady had that good first half against Green Bay, but didn't look great in the second half. But it is Tom Brady at the end of the day, right? I mean, this guy has the history in the Super Bowl. It's his 10th Super Bowl now, 6 rings. I mean, we know all the stories. So, yeah, I think the line is right where Vegas wants it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, obviously, come Sunday.
Agree with the line, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah, I agree with the line. I'm a little concerned, though, about the Chiefs because Eric Fisher went down the left tackle for the Chiefs, tore his Achilles, and Daniel Kilgore, their center, is now on the COVID list. He could return, but it's not a guarantee. And this is a team whose line has been ravaged by injury. Like, they got Kalekli Osemele to play guard. He got hurt early in the season. Mitchell Schwartz, who was an all-pro guard, he went down at right tackle. So this line has been decimated, and they've still been able to win. But, you know, Tampa Bay's got a very vaunted defensive line. They've got Sue, they got Pierre-Paul, they got Vita Vea coming back, a bunch of guys. So, you know, but Mahomes is a magician, so I'm not too worried, but that is something to keep my eye on during the game. But yeah, in terms of line, I think it's accurate for just based on how these teams have been.
The only problem I have with the line is it's really making me want to bet on the Chiefs, but that's making me want to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs, and that just never really works out well for anybody. I mean, I know he's lost a few games, but I mean, I'm leaning Chiefs just because of the line, and Patrick Mahomes is the one quarterback maybe I trust against Tom Brady. But then again, like Jordan said, the Bucks defense is ferocious on that front four, especially, and with the Chiefs banged up, and if they can get to Patrick Mahomes, like they could cause some issues for that Chiefs offense.
We might be in for a shootout, aren't we? It just has that sense, right? It's one of those games. It might draw parallels to the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl. Just a shootout, and it's going to take one defensive play down the stretch to really make the difference, and that will be whoever comes out on top, whoever gets that play. Over under 56.5, I believe it is. Jake, are you over or under this Sunday?
Like, I want to be over, right? Because who doesn't love points? But at the same time, it's like you look at that game earlier in the season, the Chiefs start hot. I think they went up early and they remained up the whole game. Final finish 27-24, so we're looking at 51 points there. So it stayed under the first game. The way these last couple games have gone between the Bucks and the Chiefs, obviously in their respective conferences, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see it going over. Mahomes torched the Bucks defense last time. It's going to all come down to if Brady's going to be able to match him touchdown for touchdown. So if that's the case, then it's an over, right? I don't know. It's a scary number because it is so big for a championship game where you think everyone's got to be playing at their top level. So 56.5, you rarely see that number on Sundays, and this is the biggest game of the year. So we'll see.
Unique Super Bowl in that respect. Do we like the number over under, Jordan?
I think it's going to go over. I think Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, all them are going to come out slinging because they have to. That's how they're going to win. I'll tell you one thing. If Tom Brady throws 3 picks, they're not going to win this game. It's just they're not playing the Packers defense. It's Kansas City because you turn the ball over, Patrick Mahomes is going the other way with it. And that's going to be Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. That's going to be their game plan. They're going to score as many points as they can because they know Tampa Bay can do the same thing. So if they're and Tampa Bay, they're going to play at the same game they are. So I think it's going to be a shootout. I really do. I would go over. I feel confident about that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be the guy at the water cooler who bet the under on the next day. But my only contradictory thing to me is, like, do you guys think there's any possibility that Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, their game plan is to run the ball, keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, keep it in their hands, run the ball with Leonard Fournette, who has been having a great playoffs. He's upped his game in this playoffs. Ronald Jones is there too. Do you think there's any chance they just try and play the clock possession game in this one, and then that way the under hits?
No, I know that playoff Leonard Fournette has been playing well, but their run game overall this season hasn't been great. Like, it's been good, and then it's been really bad. So, their bread and butter has been the deep pass, and I know that a lot of people been mad about that because Brady's more of a dink and dunk guy, but it's worked. They got to the Super Bowl with it. So I don't think they'll change from that. They'll have some runs sprinkled in, but I think mostly we'll see Brady sling the ball around.
Well, I think the one thing too is everyone says, like, okay, the only way to beat Mahomes is to keep the ball out of his hands. But is that necessarily the case? I mean, we saw he went 15-1 this year in the regular season as a starter, 14-1. I guess he didn't play the last game of the season. And the one game they lost was to the Raiders. The Raiders put up 40, right? You have to outscore this team to beat them. You can't keep the ball to Mahomes' hands because he can score in three plays, 2 plays, 1 play, right? So I don't know if it's necessarily going to be keep the ball to Mahomes' hands. It might just be whoever can score last, right? So I don't know. It's definitely something to think about, but has running the ball worked up to this point against the Chiefs? Not really, right? I mean, like I said, 14-1 in the regular season with Mahomes at the helm. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Fournette's an X factor, and I know, Kellen, you heard me say this yesterday, but we're going to know early on whether Fournette's on or off, right? He was on against New Orleans. Against Green Bay, up and down. But let's go back to the last time Tom Brady was in the Super Bowl. The Rams offense, as great as the defense was, but the Rams offense flying high, right? I'm sorry. But the Rams offense was flying high, and I think Belichick said, hey, let's just keep the ball out of their hands, right? And it worked. Can we see a scenario like that? I think that's what you're getting at there, Kellen. It is interesting. And let me just throw this stat out there. And I know, Kellen, you heard me say this yesterday. This is the 14th Super Bowl ever where the teams have played each other earlier in the regular season for the first 13 times. The team that's won, they're 6-7. So the losing team has won 7 out of the last 13 Super Bowls. And this is the 14th time that it's happening. After that Chiefs game, the Bucs, something happened. It's a different team. I think that was the turning point, and that was one of Tyreek Hill's signature games, and that's just how it is. It's going to be that dynamic. Hill, Bucs secondary. Let's get to the picks. Jake Bolin Moss, Super Bowl 55. Your old buddy Tom Brady, back in the big game. Does he do it?
So hard to go against Tom, but yeah, the Chiefs. I went against the Chiefs last year. I took the Niners. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice, so I'll take the Chiefs -3.5. Just too much firepower on that offense, and I don't know. It's almost impossible to outscore that team.
Mr. McDonald.
I have it closer than Jake does. Like I said, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I have the Chiefs winning 31, Bucs 28. So I'm going to take Bucs to cover, but I don't think they'll win. I used to be a Brady hater, a noted Brady hater, but that ended after Super Bowl 51. And you know what? I love to see Bruce Arians win a Super Bowl. I'm a big Bruce Arians fan. I love what he did with the Colts in 2012, and Chuck Pagano underwent leukemia treatment. So, you know, I would just love to see him win, but I don't think that they'll be able to stop the Chiefs. So, yeah, I have Chiefs winning, but Bucs covering it was 3.5.
You like the cover. There you go. Kellen.
I mean, I got to ride with Mahomes again. I mean, the boys convinced me on the over, so I think it's going to be a high scoring game. You guys got me there, and I just can't be the guy that bets the under when the over hits. So I got the Chiefs, but I got the Chiefs covering like Jake. I got the Chiefs something like 34-30 kind of thing. I think it will be close, but I think the Chiefs will do just enough to get the cover done.
There you go. The boys convinced you. And those are the guys from Bets and Bites. Gentlemen, tell everyone how they can find you. Listen to the show. Keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, we're once a week on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, talking pretty much everything. Last week we got into some Royal Rumble wrestling, so it's a wide variety over at Bets and Bites for sure.
Yep, and I actually got it right. I knew Edge was going to win. I said that. So anybody listening and bet on it, you're welcome. And Jake has a weekly LeBron rant, and that's always very entertaining. So, yeah, make sure to listen in.
There you go. The road to WrestleMania officially on. The guys from Bets and Bites have that covered. And Kellen on the mic, a new show. Tell everyone what it's about, what they're going to expect, and what they should know moving forward.
Well, basically, if you're going to be sad about football ending, the next big sporting event after that is March Madness, and it's approaching us soon. So my On the Mic is a college basketball podcast. We go over the biggest storylines every week. It's once a week, and I also give some picks at the end of the show, some betting picks. So if you haven't been following, if you've been focused on the NFL, you've been focused on hockey, you're going to look for something to fill that void. Tune into On the Mic. I'll get you caught up on the college basketball world and get you ready to win your bracket pool come March.
There you go. Kellen Forrest on the mic. Jake Bolin Moss, Jordan McDonald with Bets and Bites on the mic on the Garage Door Sports Network. And there you go. There's another edition of Lock It Up Sports Talk. My name is Logan Lockhart. Thank you again for joining me. Remember, Lock It Up streams on every platform, 1 p.m. every Wednesday, including on Twitter, where you can find it right now, where a lot of you might be watching as we speak. There we go. Gentlemen, enjoy the game. Take the over, apparently. Chiefs -3.5, apparently. But we do kind of want to see Tom Brady win, don't we?
Yep.
All right. Who answered first? The Patriots fan. That's who answered first, right?
Patriots/Bucks fan now, kind of.
Right. Would you ever, this is a serious question, would you ever buy a Tom Brady Bucks jersey, Jake?
No, I couldn't do it to myself, unfortunately.
What about a Gronk one, just for jokes?
Yeah, I'd probably get a Gronk Patriots. Like, if I'm going to get one of those guys, it's going to be Patriots, so.
No, Gronk Bucks.
I know. I just wouldn't go Bucks. I couldn't do it. It would just feel wrong.
Yeah, it would feel wrong, wouldn't it? Now that it's a dumb question, now that I really.
No, it's a good question. It just, for me, I don't know. I don't want to be that guy walking around in my Tom Brady Bucks jersey after cheering for the Patriots for however many years of my life, 15.
There you go. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I hope we can do it again soon, and hopefully college basketball March Madness NCAA tournament. Hopefully we can talk a little bit about that as we approach it. There you go. Until next week on Lock It Up Sports Talk, my name is Logan Lockhart. Here we are, signing off.